recording this, so we'll be putting it on our YouTube. So,
Excellent.
Dre, we'll let you take it away. I'm excited.
All right. Well, for those of you that are watching this back and those of you that are here, my name is Dre Williams. I am owner and operator of MOC Media, or MOC Media. So it stands for Making of Champions. It's been a brand of mine that I've been running for at least 23 years, where I've helped with the fitness industry, and then also have been really prominent in helping folks grow their business and profitability, especially right around the COVID time is when it really started taking off, because folks needed to really be online and be present online. So one thing that I started to dive into the concepts of the psychology of the click. What makes folks click on things? What makes folks actually go through the process? What's the emotional attachment? All of those things. And one thing I learned is it really doesn't have much to do with the content that we have, but it's the value and the relatability. So we're going to dive into that on this. So essentially, we're getting a crash course of psychology of the click from my book. And at the end, there is a little bit of a workshop where we're going to answer some questions. You don't have to answer them out loud. It's more or less just writing it down and getting a score. So sorry for me talking really fast, but 30 minutes, it's a short time to get a lot covered. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. All right. Is everybody seeing my screen? We should be able to see it. And we'll go on into the presentation. All right. Once it loads, we'll go ahead and dive into this. So this is psychology of the click. The goal is to help people stop, stay, and take action when they're on your page. So essentially, when you're, let me minimize this screen. I don't need that. There we go. So essentially, every scroll, every story, every impression, every like and moment, it all carries a story. And we want to learn how to help you read that data so that you can understand how to really show up and understand the psychology of why people are doing what they're doing on your particular page. Now, I kept everything very simple and black and white because of the fact that, well, the information is the most important. So when we are going through our online presence and marketing, we have to understand what the largest form of currency truly is. And oftentimes when we're looking at the currency, we think it's money because, well, currency typically equals money. And when unpacking the research over the last about 12, 13 years, I've actually learned that when we're looking online, it's actually not money. So then we go ahead and go to the next one, time, because time is extremely valuable. Once you spend it, you can't get it back. And though, yes, time is extremely valuable and people are making micro deposits into your social media or your online presence by giving you time, that still wasn't exactly it. So then I went ahead and decided maybe it's information. And the beautiful thing about AI, when doing this research, I was doing the research prior to AI, and then AI came about, and I've been able to really kind of fast track a lot of my research and found out that information wasn't necessarily it either. So it left me thinking, well, then what is it? What is the largest form of currency in today's day and age that we can really leverage? And it's attention. So our goal is to get attention. So we have to start to unpack what that attention is. And a lot of social media management companies out there really lean in on impressions. Impressions are great. However, and I say it almost every time I speak, having thousands of impressions on a post or a piece of content that's out there on social media or Google Business or YouTube, that's great. But if there's no engagement, then what's it for? It's like showing up to a party with 5,000 people that know you're there, but they're not going to talk to you. So impressions are great to be able to kind of track, are people actually looking at your stuff? But now we want to go ahead and look at the engagement aspect of it, which is the true attention. And that's the attention span that we get from all of our folks or prospects. So why they scroll past you. This is kind of jumping right on in. When we're going through YouTube, Google Business, all of the social media platforms, they're all based off of the same platform or the same foundational coding. And that's building trust, building community, and educating. So we want to try to be able to find ways to be able to do that in a way that relates to them. So people scroll past content that doesn't do a couple of the items, reflect their identity. So it's the age old adage of when you're looking to buy, you want to buy from someone that you like, someone that is relatable, someone that you see yourself in. And then we want to make sure we're solving that problem. If you're not solving a problem for the prospects that are looking at your content, more than likely they're going to scroll past. Oftentimes we don't go to social media or these pages because we in fact have a problem. However, if we're able to reflect identity and be able to solve a problem that's sitting in the back of their mind, then that makes it so you jump to the forefront of what their scroll happens to be. And then we want to move them emotionally. Now, I'm not sure if you guys have heard it, but I love the saying, emotion equals motion. In order to be able to get them to move towards you or want to work with you or view more of your content to eventually become a client or refer people, we have to be able to reflect their identity, solve a problem, but truly move them emotionally, make them say, yeah, that's me, or I totally get that. So what I'm going to try to do today is I'm going to try to unpack a little bit of that. So when we're looking at all this, we want to make sure we understand, yes, emotion equals motion, but we need the data before we're able to get to that emotion, because we need to understand what it is that we're posting that's going to be able to get them to stop their scroll. What are we doing that's creating that emotional curiosity? So curiosity creates action. Action creates data, and data refines the emotion, and the emotion drives the data. So it's a cyclical process that we're able to unpack when we're taking the data from all your social media, YouTube, and your general platforms. And we're able to quantify it and say, this is the type of post that is going to do the best. This is the type of post that's going to land flat, so that you can have predictable outcomes. And then we also want to try to find out what's the best time to post. And we'll get into that in just a little bit. Now, your goal when on social media, oftentimes when I meet with folks and do consultations, they want to get more views. And I would argue, based off of the last about 10 to 12 years of working with folks on social media, YouTube, and Google Business, it's not the views or impressions that are what matters most. It's the relevance. So your relevance is far greater than the reach. Now, it's hard to unpack that because a lot of social media managers out there are saying, hey, you want reach, you want more views, you want more followers. With the way that the platforms are moving, it no longer matters how many followers you truly have. What matters is your relevance to the content that people are searching. So trying to stay top of mind means you're trying to stay top of trending topics in your particular niche audience. So whatever your industry may be, you want to try to make sure that you're staying top of mind, or at least top of topic, with the top 3 searches that are going on. Now, you can do this with a number of different platforms to be able to find out what are the most relevant topics that people are searching in my industry. AI is typically the easiest right now. So you have AI such as Claude. ChatGPT still does a really good job. If you're not paying for it, I highly recommend you do, because that brings it so it's current. OpenAI has been doing a lot of work with their ChatGPT. And then there's a number of other platforms. Social media, Metaverse is really stepping up their game. And then Gemini is phenomenal. Now, when using AI, understand that it's basically checking data and algorithms. Now, algorithm is something that is this altruistic word that a lot of folks are using, saying I can control the algorithm. And I would argue that you can't, because each individual has at least 5 algorithms. So we want to try to make sure we understand that you're not going to control it. Excuse me. So you have an algorithm of when you're searching online at work. You have an algorithm of when you're sitting down watching TV, when you're driving in your car. Shame on you. Yep. There's a lot of us that probably scroll a little bit when we're at stoplights. But the point here is to show that we cannot control the algorithm, because all we can do is control the data that we're putting out in efforts to get data back, so we understand how to be able to maneuver the business and brand to be in front of folks and be top of mind. So relevance, this is why that's so much more important than reach. Now, you earn relevance by doing a couple of things, by being very clear in your purpose and being very clear in your message. You also want to make sure that you're consistent. Now, consistency doesn't mean I post 3 to 4 times per day, every single day, 7 days a week for however long, amen. Consistency means your message, your brand, it shows up consistently with the same message every time. Oftentimes I see folks say, oh man, I didn't post today, I have to post something. And I'm here to tell you, don't do that. When you just post randomly, and if you look back at your post and you think, I don't know why I posted that, I don't know what I wanted to get out of that, then that means the algorithm has the same data. And that means your folks that are looking at your content have the same problem. They don't know why you posted it. Now, there's a mix. We want to be able to be in about a 70-30 mix, 70% business, 30% you, to be able to show you're still human and you have a sense of authenticity to you. But then we also want to make sure that we're really showing up and posting things that are relevant to your business and consistent. And then you want to make sure that you listen to the data. When you get content out, it's going to give you data back in regards to what people are truly looking at and what they're vibing with. So we want to try to make sure your vibe score is really high. So that means we look at the data. If you post something, it gets 3 likes. That means probably significant, sorry, that word's tough for me today. Significant other or parents or kids or whatever, somebody that's really close to you, they see it, they like it all the time. If that's all you're getting, then that means it's landing flat with the niche audience that you're trying to attack. Therefore, we go back and we repurpose your content so that we can get in front of the folks that you want. Now, I would argue folks in the entrepreneur world in general do not have a content problem. They have a strategy problem. They have a data problem. They're not truly pulling in the data to understand when, where, and what they should be posting. And this is where MOC kind of comes in to help out. So to understand what you should be posting, you have to understand how the brain scrolls. So your audience subconsciously is seeking novelty, emotion, and validation. So these things give you these micro dopamine hits, which make you feel good. Because how often are we truly scrolling and looking for an insurance agent on social media? How often are we scrolling and looking to buy a house on social media? Very rarely. But what we do when we're scrolling is we're trying to escape whatever norm or reality we are in, because we're looking for some sort of novelty, emotional attachment, or validation of how you're feeling in that particular moment and day. Now, if your content is able to hit a couple of those items, that's going to make it so that they're going to stop and you're able to give them that micro dopamine hit. Now, as you're able to help them kind of give them that fix, that keeps them looking more at your content. Once again, understanding the psychology of how they're scrolling through content is really important so that your content is going to be relevant, number one, but also still be able to gain attention. So I have what I call the 2.7 second rule, which 2 years ago used to be the 3-second rule. And I imagine 2 years, it's going to be probably a 2.5 second rule. But the 2.7 second rule, this is our attention span when scrolling. You have roughly 2.7 seconds to be able to get somebody to have initial trust with your content. This means you have a hook or something that emotionally attaches them to whatever it is that you're saying, whether it be written copy or spoken word. And in that 2.7 seconds, you've earned their initial trust. You now have 10 seconds to be able to show relevance, and then 30 seconds to be able to show value. And it's literally in that order. So Harvard conducted a research in regards to our attention span on social media and the research is called Social Media is Dumbing Down the People. So 2.7 seconds, that makes it so that you say something that's outlandish. And I'm sure you've probably seen it on social media where somebody has a hook that is just so out of left field that it gets you to stop. And then 10 seconds, they're going to bring it back to relevance on what exactly it is that they want to talk to you about. And then 30 seconds is where they're going to give you all the value. So this is where we give value. We're not asking for the viewer or the prospect to do anything. You're not asking them to reach out to you. You're not asking them to let them know who is ready to list or buy a home. You're not asking if they're ready to list or buy a home. You are just simply giving free value. The only call to action is give me a follow if you really like this content. So clarity is always going to beat cleverness 100% of the time. So if you are selling homes and you have a post that is just completely not even relevant to selling homes, the clarity of it is going to be off. So say, for example, you have a llama spitting in somebody's face, which is comical. People love it and they stop on your page. But then after that, you kind of bait and switch, and then you start talking about the industry and rates. Well, that means there's no clarity to your content, and that's going to wind up dropping you. It's almost like that initial handshake, you've lost their trust. And now when they see your content, you're less likely to get them to stop on your items. So the anatomy of how we want to create your content, whether it's a still shot with copy or video, we want to try to make sure we're doing a hook, a hold, and a help. So the hook is to interrupt their scroll. This is where we're going to be able to get their attention, like I was just talking about. We don't want it to be so outlandish that it doesn't even relate to what you're talking about, but we want to try to make sure that it's relevant to your business, but it's also some sort of entertaining flair, something that's a hot topic, so to speak, or a trending topic for your niche audience. Then we want to make sure we hold them and we want to validate their curiosity. The reason why they stopped is because you said something that caught their attention and piqued their curiosity. Now we want to try to make sure after we hold them, we deliver that value. If you're asking for them to follow you before you deliver your value, then you're really going to land flat. If you do that 1,000 times, you may get about 10 or 15 people that do follow you just because that's what they do. But we want to try to increase our conversion when it comes to follows, when it comes to folks that are actually looking at your content and following through with your call to actions. We want to try to make sure we increase that by giving the value first. Now, the reason why we don't jump in and just start talking about sales and all those things right away is because you have to build that relationship. So the relationship's no longer face to face first. We are in this emoji instead of emotion world now. You have to understand the emoji. So it's an emoji intelligence versus an emotional intelligence. You have to know what the like means. You have to know that if they liked your content, they probably have already seen at least 6.5 hours worth of your content prior before they actually hit like, because people do what I like to call light stalking before they actually reach out to folks. So the emotional layers, when you're going through your content, we want to try to make sure that when we first are hitting them up, it's a surface emotion. So it's funny, relatable, and interesting. Now, I've gone to a couple of AJ's presentations, and AJ does a phenomenal job at leading with humor and relatability before they get into the actual value and the meat of the presentation. Now, if we're able to take that and convert it into a social media post or an online post, then that's where we're going to be able to catch a lot of people, because that surface emotion as it leads into the actual value is extremely important. Then we want to go ahead and try to lean into the second emotional layer, which is stored emotion. It's a memory triggered. So we want to try to make sure that we're finding something that potentially they've experienced or have third party experienced at some point in their life that has made them remember it. It's almost like a form of triggering a minute trauma to get them to lean into your product that's going to help them. And then we want projected emotion. This is who you want to become, right? So not just who you want to become as the potential person to do business with them, but who you want them to become. So the projected is where conversion happens. This is where they say, yep, I know that Dre's going to be able to get me exactly what I want. So now I'm going to be able to reach out to him and communicate on how data is going to help with this emotional learning curve, right? So it's it literally goes in that order. Your first pieces of content are going to be hitting surface emotion. Then you're going to be kind of moving into more stored emotion as you continuously and consistently post relevant content. And then it turns into projected emotion, where now you have folks that have watched enough of your content that knows that you are going to be the person that moves them from point A to point B, whichever with whatever the product may be. Now, timing is extremely important. Timing is alignment. You want to make sure you post when their attention is extremely active, not when it's convenient to you. It's extremely important to understand that factor. Now, when you post when it's convenient to you, this is typically when you're going to be your most authentic. This is where we have to try to make sure when you're doing your content, it's as authentic and more talking points than it is reading a script. If you're reading a script, they know, they can feel the difference. So I would encourage you to do talking points so it's really legit, whatever it is you know, and you're able to talk about for hours. That's where you should start with your content, whether it's YouTube, Google Business, any of the social media platforms. Start with content that you truly can talk about for hours within your niche, and then you're going to segue into other pieces of information, but make sure you have talking points to keep you very on point when you're doing your content. Now, the timing is important. There are certain data points within the social media platforms that will show you the timing, but they give you limited information. MOC Media, we jump in and we give you all the data points. So who's looking at it, gender, geographic, what time, and then consistently what time you should be posting, either between 1 o'clock and 4 o'clock or somewhere in that pocket. Now, when you know folks are paying attention to your page the most, that's not just the time to just post. This is also the time to engage. So when folks have commented or liked something on your page, this is the time to make sure you go back and you engage with those individuals, because that's going to help raise the social media or the platform's awareness of you building community. Because remember, that's one of the foundational pieces, building community. Now, the myth of virility. So you want to go viral. Virality doesn't necessarily mean sales, and there's really never a strategy behind it. So it's basically just a side effect of the things that we're talking about already. Clarity with your message, consistency, the timing, making sure that you're posting when folks are really resonating with your content, the emotional resonance. They feel you, they're right there with you, so it's almost having an empathetic posting strategy. And then the value, this is the only thing that you truly can control. So those 5 items, that's all you can control. You cannot control when it goes viral. Now, the virality will occur when the mass audience decides your message is what they need to see or hear. So it happens often where you'll post something and 2 weeks later it goes a little bit viral. Now, building the digital trust, we want to make sure trust begins with the pattern, not proof. So people trust what they can predict, your tone, your rhythm. The rhythm is not just how you talk, but it's also how often you post. If you post 3 to 4 times per week, stick with that rhythm. Don't change it up. It changes the trust, not just with people, but also with the data collection for the algorithm. Your voice. You want to make sure if you're a candid, very transparent type of person when you talk, that's how you want to show up online. Because if you show up extremely well put together and then all of a sudden in person you're kind of all over the place and a little bit off, well, there's a piece of the trust that gets lost. And then the visual identity. You want to make sure that if you have a brand placement, put it there, a logo, something. Repetition, recognition, trust, this equals clicks. And that's what we're all after, their attention. I'm going to speed up because we got a little bit of time here. So the 4 dimensions of a click, a powerful post hits at least 2 of these. If you hit 3, you have extreme momentum. If you hit 4, it's mastery. So if you're able to hit the identity, have that person say, hey, that's me. If you're able to hit aspiration, that's who I want to be. Or you're able to hit belonging, these are my people, or the value, this helps me today, or this helps me indefinitely, then you're really rocking, especially if you hit all 4 of those. Now, data is just emotional honesty. People will like something because it mattered to them. They scroll if it's not for them today. A flop is not bad. A flop means you have feedback. That means it didn't matter to them today, or that means the message didn't really hit the way that it needed to. A spike is a lesson to understand, okay, so this is how my audience truly likes to hear how I talk and how I present. Oftentimes, folks will see a flop on a video or content and they think, oh, that's it, I'm done on social media. You shouldn't. It's information, and it's valuable information. So you know how you should be showing up for your potential clients. The creators who win don't personalize the data. They just analyze exactly what's working and what's not working, and they make adaptations and adjustments. So consistency beats confidence. You don't need confidence to show up. Oftentimes I hear people say, I hate the way I sound on video. I hate the way I look. I don't like the way I write. I really have bad news. It's not going to change. Okay. You're going to always be exactly who you are. This is who you show up in person. This is how you should also show up on video. You write unique to you. And then we also have tools out there that can help you make it a little bit better. So the goal is just to show up. So consistency, data, clarity, that's always going to equal growth in your favor. Plus, there's always somebody that wants to hear your message. Always know that. So the data loop, we want to make sure we're posting, we want to measure, we want to adjust the emotional intelligence, and then we want to make sure we repeat, right? So this is the focus that we do. This is what I do with my clients often, where we post, we measure what the data gave us, and we're able to decide, are we going to stay on that track or are we going to leave? Oftentimes you'll even have it where your data is hitting a niche audience that you never knew you hit. So now the goal is, do we double down on that, or do we make adjustments to go after the niche audience that you truly want? So this is the engine of predictable growth so that you can truly track how you're doing. So motion plus meaning, it's the I want this. It's the this makes sense. When both of those align, this is how you're going to get people to click through your content. Clarity creates clicks. So it's not how much you say, it's say less, say it clearer, and say it with intention. Know exactly what you want to get out of your post and go after it. So once again, if you post something and you don't know exactly what it is that you wanted, well, then it's going to land flat and other folks are not going to know exactly what you want either. And this is where social media gets muddled. It's not your content, it's the strategy and the specifics behind your content. So as we wrap up here, this is a quick workshop section. So this is to self-reflect on your presence on social media, your website, your Google business, your YouTube. So you score yourself on a scale of 1 to 10, and you can come back and do this at another time, or if you have a piece of paper, you can go through this. But we want to go through this and ask ourselves, do I post consistently? And that would be a score of 1 to 10. 1 being no, I don't post consistently, 10 being I do. Do my hooks provoke curiosity? Is my brand voice consistent? Does my content reflect identity or value? I respond with empathy. And I would even go back on number 5 and ask, do you respond? Oftentimes folks don't even respond when people comment or like. And then I know my ideal audience. This is a really important one because oftentimes we think we know it, but it changes. And then I measure emotional engagement. My visuals and tone are aligned. I post with purpose. I study my data weekly. Those are the 10 questions that you should ask yourself at least once a month. Now, when you score yourself, if you score between a 90 and 100, that means you're aligned with your brand and your online presence and focus, and that things should be moving in a really solid direction. If you're between 70 and 89, you have a strong foundation. 50 to 69, it's untapped potential. And then anything under 50, it's kind of time to tear it all down and rebuild it. Now, the last little bit, the emotional data piece. What emotion do you want from your audience to feel? These are things you should ask yourself before each post. So what emotion do you want your audience to feel? Which recent posts generated the most emotional response and why? What emotion do you feel creating content that performs well? Where is the gap between what you intend versus what they hear? And what will you test next week to increase emotional alignment? So I would encourage you to watch back and answer those questions honestly. And then my goal is to help you champion your click. Because remember, emotion equals motion, but you can't get to that motion without data. So that is everything.
Wow. That's a lot. And that is amazing breakdown. Holy cow. Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, if you guys have any questions, I know we were 10 to 10:30, but if you guys have any questions, I could definitely answer them. And then feel free to shoot me an email as well. I'm here to help you guys out. This is why I wanted to collaborate with you guys. So,
Thank you, Dre.
I have so many questions,
all right.
but I will reach out to you personally because it provokes a lot of thought about what you think you're doing and what I really should be doing, and I'm conflicted. So
Yep.
I know I signed up with Dre after I met with him, you guys, and it changed the whole way I look at things. And now the trick is to implement them. But
Yep.
I
You and I have a
recommend
strategy meeting that we need to get scheduled because I've been looking at your data. I'm like, all right, you got movement. Now we have to get purpose.
because of your help. So I really recommend you guys, if you could get a one-on-one consult with him. I'm hoping to bring him back when we have a longer period of time. And I really appreciate you taking your time and offering this to our members, Dre.
Yeah, for sure. And then I'll share the slide deck over with you guys. It'll also have my QR code to schedule a one-on-one. So in the one-on-one, when I work with folks, typically we'll dive into the social media, do a surface audit just to find out what your engagement looks like, your engagement score. And then we're able to kind of unpack some strategies that can help grow your business. One thing you guys should all know, as members, you get a discounted rate on the platform that really does a deep dive into your data. It's not just for social media. It's not just Facebook and Instagram and all that. It's also your Pinterest. It's also your Google business, your YouTube. One thing to know that if your Google business is ranking, that means it helps boost your YouTube. And then it also helps boost your social media now that they have this back-end agreement with Google. So everything kind of all works together, and understanding the data points behind it is really helpful to help you grow your business.
That's a lot. I think that's amazing. Let's do another one whenever you can. I don't think we have anything scheduled for 26. So yeah, whatever you're giving. And I think anyone could use this platform. I mean, it's a different thinking model than most, you know what I mean? So
a lot of platforms are focused primarily on content creation. I'm focused on what to do with your content. Because like I stated, we don't have a content problem. It's a what do we do with it? So yeah.
Got it.
Well, I'm definitely available to you guys. That's part of this collaboration. So you just name the time and I'll make it happen.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
So much.
Take care.
Thanks, Dre.